engineering talk. We have two engineers from Smith. We have Abhijeet and we have Anagh joining us from the backend engineering team. So super excited to share with you about a cool feature that we have recently shipped, which is version control with Git. Before we get started, let's quickly introduce Abhijeet and Anagh. So Abhijeet, do you want to go first?
Yeah. Hey, thanks, Vihar. So I'm Abhijeet. I'm working as a backend engineer in AppSmith. Since a long time, I'm working on version control feature, and really excited about this. And we have seen quite a growth in usage. So really happy. Yeah. Thanks.
Hey guys, myself Anagh. I have been working with AppSmith more than a year, and work, developing this version control feature has been really fun, and super excited to be here.
All right, awesome. Thanks, guys. So before we actually get into the presentation, I just wanted to quickly different features your workers. I think most of the community members might also have known you from Discord. You guys have been asking a lot of questions on our community forum. But apart from the version control with Git, what are different things did you work on here at AppSmith?
Yeah. So I'll go first. So I'm also more than a year in AppSmith and really enjoying the work culture here. So the first project that I was working on was generating a CRUD page from the DB tables. So with the single click, you can actually generate at least the admin panel that you want with that table. So consider you have the database already connected to AppSmith, and you have already configured the table if you consider Postgres or SQL data type. You can actually create all the CRUD operations with just a single click with that feature, and it's pretty awesome to have that functionality inbuilt. So you can get to learn how the binding works in AppSmith and other stuff. So that was my first thing, and then I was working with the import export feature. So consider you have different instances where you have hosted your AppSmith, and you can actually export your application from one instance and then import it into the another instance. So you don't have to duplicate the same application in both the instances. So that was my second epic that I worked on. And then it started with the Git sync. Yeah.
Right. Awesome. Yeah. People, know about the import feature. That's one of the most requested features. You can easily import the entire JSON and then quickly upload it onto different instances. So that was like a super cool thing. But I think with version control, you have more options rather than exporting and then importing, which we'll discuss. Anagh, do you want to?
Yeah, sure. So my first feature was on the page ordering. So when I still remember when I joined, you were not able to drag and or readjust the pages in the left pane. So that was my first feature. And the next one was the mock DBs or the sample DBs that you see in the data source. So that like when user gets started with the AppSmith, right? You don't have to worry about connecting to a data source, like finding the right things. And so just to try out the application and see what all it can do for a user. Then I worked on the suggested widgets. So that way, this is also in focus for the new user, so that he would get to know how the binding works, how we can use the data to a different types of widgets. And then after that, it was a version control feature. Since then, it has been a long journey.
All right, awesome. Thanks. Yeah, I think now we'll get started. Let me quickly share my screen. So today we'll be talking about one of the most requested features, which is version control with Git. So this was launched a couple of months back, but it was in beta. Now the feature is completely live. You can use it in your instances, self-hosted instances. We'll talk more about this in a bit. So let me quickly share you the agenda of this engineering talk. So first, definitely we got an introduction of the team, but we'll also get to know about the different engineers who had been working hard to ship this feature out. The second, we'll be discussing about the problem that led to creating version control kit. So there were a bunch of problems we have discussed with the community. Few people were, issues on our GitHub, and then we had our own approach to this, and we'll all share that experience with you guys. Since we are building everything in public, it's a great opportunity for us to listen to all these folks and then build this cool feature. And next, we'll let our engineers talk about what version control with Git do on AppSmith, and also give you like a quick intro of different features it comes with. And then we'll also walk through. We'll be giving a demo on different things that version control can do. Like for example, how you can connect to your Git, how you can commit your entire AppSmith app onto a Git repository. We'll talk about different Git providers, and we'll be demoing all these things. Up next, we'll be talking about the enhancements and the limitations that were there in this feature, and we'll also talk about different things that we'll add to this feature in future. Lastly, we will talk about the architecture, about how it sync. Since the entire code is open source, you can find the entire code in our repository. You can check that out at github.com/appsmith. So we'll talk about the entire architecture behind GitSync. And lastly, we'll get to more about our engines by quickly asking a few questions, and also we'll be happy to take your questions in the chat. Version control with Git or anything that's related to AppSmith. All right. So with that being said, let's quickly jump on into the problem. Abhijeet, do you wanna go ahead?
Yeah. Can you go
Should
to
I
next?
just? Yeah. All right. Awesome.
Yeah, you can share your screen. I'll just talk about it. Yeah. So yeah, guys. So when we started discussing about this feature, so it basically came from the user's perspective. A lot of users were asking, is there any way to recover up our apps from AppSmith if it is in a bad state? Or can we have something like versioning where we can track the different features and the bug fixes that we are working on? So yeah, if we are into this business, then we have to do a version control. Basically, that's the development life cycle that everyone follows these days to track everything that is that you are shipping to your users, right? So low code platform is again not an exception there. We have to track the features. We have to track the bug fixes as well. So default choice was to introduce the Git. That is a de facto standard in industry. So that was the first problem. Basically, you should be able to go back in time and then recover your application from the point where it was working flawlessly. The another one was the branching model. So branching model acts like a development playground for the developers. Okay, so consider this like you have the production application and you are working on that production application, but you're already scared, if I change something, will it break my production application and will it affect our users? Okay, so that's where the branching came in. So you can create the branches in AppSmith and then you can work on that branch. You can even break that application completely. Considering even you're breaking that particular branch, your production branch will always be in a same state. So your actual users will not be affected. So this gives a complete freedom for developers to work on their different features than bug fixes. So that's kind of a thing that we wanted. Another one was around going through the QA lifecycle. Okay, consider you're developing a feature, but earlier it used to happen like you're shipping that feature on the go. Okay, the QA folks find it really difficult to give the suggestions to their developers what is missing and what to be included. But with the branching, now QA folks can work on separate branches. They can go through the QA life cycle, and then once all the parties are satisfied, basically the developers, business users, and all those stuff, then you can merge those branches in your working branch, like in your production branch or development branch, whatever. So that was around the branching model. And the third one was kind of little more integrated use case where we want to have a same application that is running on different instances. Okay, so with that, we had introduced the import export feature earlier, but those were that feature were having some limitations. Every time when you import the feature, you get the separate URL for that application, right? So it was kind of annoying. You are developing your application in one instance and your production application is in another instance. Okay, with Git, you can have a separate remote repository where you're developing your application. You can push your changes to the repository, and these changes will be pulled to your the production instance, so that this flow is now complete. So that's the another use case that we are referring. And all of these use cases came from our community members itself. It's not a rocket science that we had done. We just talked to these users, and this is how it came into picture. So yeah, we are continuously listening to our users, and as a solution to get out of this is basically the Git that we have introduced as a version control system in AppSmith. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Abhijeet, for discussing all these. All right. Now let's get into the solution, which is version control with Git. So this is the feature that you see on the cloud instance, and you can also see this on the self-hosted instances. Abhijeet, do you wanna talk about this?
Yeah, as I suggested, the ultimate solution was to give a version control, and Git was the de facto standard. So the basic functionality that users needed was they should be able to connect to their remote hosting provider. It can be like Bitbucket, GitHub, GitLab. These are the few names, but whichever platform which supports the SSH key protocol, that can be connected with the AppSmith. Okay. Once you connect your application to your remote hosting provider, you should be able to make a commit and push, so that basically you can tag your releases. You can actually go back in time and then come back to that particular commit, and then revert your changes to that particular commit. That is also possible now. With the Git branches, you can now create your branch, have your own playground. You can, once you are satisfied, you can merge those branches to the base branch. Once it is done, you can actually delete the branches. So all of that stuff is present in AppSmith today. As I earlier said, Git import was necessary because once you have multi-instance kind of architecture, you need the application to be in sync in both the instances. So with Git import and pull and sync functionality, we can do that. And if user wanted to disconnect, yeah, they can disconnect the application as well. So that's a feature that is also possible. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Abhijeet. All right, folks. Now I think it's time we do like a quick demo of all these features that Abhijeet has discussed. So Anagh, do you wanna go ahead?
Sure. So I'm just gonna share the screen. Okay, so this is a simple app I have created from our template feature. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna first start with the simple flow of connecting this application to Git, and then I'll demo you how we can use different features one by one. Okay, so first I'm gonna go ahead and create a GitHub repo. And also one more thing to notice here, that we expect the GitHub repo to be empty, except the README files, license, and those kind of things. Other than that, we expect the repo to be empty. So I'm gonna go ahead and
Anagh,
copy.
sorry for interrupting. Can you just zoom in a bit?
Sure.
Yeah,
Is this
yeah. I think this should be good.
okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and copy the SSH URL of this repo, and we'll start with how we can connect the app. So at the bottom, you see here an option called Connect to Git. And once you click on that, you'll see the modal where we ask you the SSH URL of the repository. Okay. And once you enter the URL, please click on generate key. So the idea here is that we have a generic implementation, and that's why we went ahead with the SSH key model. We'll talk in more about that later in the part of the demo. So the key that you see here is the public key, and we expect you to add this key in the GitHub repo. So I'm gonna show you how to do on the GitHub repo, but the same you can do for different platforms like GitLab, Bitbucket, etc. So here in the settings, you see a section called deploy keys, and click on add deploy key and copy the key. And also make sure that you give the right access so that we'll be able to do all the Git operations like commit, push on the app. So I'm gonna, okay, this is a title, you can give anything. So add the key. Okay. Okay, this is done. So now I'm going back here, and before clicking on connect, I want to take a minute and explain this here. So the reason we have given this as an option for is that as a user, you might be working on a different orgs. Say you're providing a service for different places, right? So in such cases, you want to use different username and different author names and email ID, right? So that's the reason we have given the user this option. So that way, if you are working for, say organization A in this app, then you want to switch to a different app where you want to work for organization B, and you want to use different the author details based on that organization compliance and rules. So you can always uncheck this box and choose the name that you want. Okay. Okay. So now that the application is connected, you can go ahead and see all the details are from the application have been added here. So you can see all the data sources under the data source directory, and then there are pages. You can come here and verify all the pages that you have. And as of now, we have only the home page. Okay. So now I'm gonna create a branch and show you how we can use the branching model to solve the different issues that we mentioned earlier. So I'll create a feature branch from the master branch, and then we can probably add a new page and merge this back, and then test it and see how we can utilize that. Okay, so I'm going to add a new page called page one, and I'm gonna add a couple of widgets. Okay, so now I'll go ahead and push these changes to the remote repository. So as you can see, this page has been modified. And other cool feature is the discard changes. Say by mistake, you have added this widget, you want to undo this change, right? Instead of like going and manually deleting all the things one by one, you can just do discard changes and delete all these changes. So it will go back to the previous comment. Okay, so the reason it shows is that we have added the home page, the new page, and once we discard, this is not present. So that's why it is saying that that resource is not available. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and push this. Okay, now this change is pushed to remote. You can come here and verify whether what has been added. So I'm going to switch to feature branch, and in pages, you should be able to see. Okay, this is one commit behind master. So okay, my slow internet, I guess. Okay, so this is the page that we have added, and you can see the table widget that has been added by me, and other necessary metadata for the page. Okay.
Yeah, I think we can see your screen now, Anagh.
Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna start with again. So I have created a feature branch from the master branch. Uh, I'll probably start again. I'll create a new branch from master called demo. Okay. So now we have two pages, right? So this page has a table widget. I'm gonna add a new widget, property chart widget, and then I'll push this change to the remote, and then I will show you how we can use the merge feature to merge the feature. Okay. So now, so this branch parameter, right? So I think Abhijeet was had mentioned that we can use the QA pipe cycle as well here. So the idea here is that each branch has its own playground sort of thing. So that way you can make the necessary changes as per the requirement, and then commit and push these changes, and then you can deploy that change within that feature branch and then test that. And if everything looks good as per your expectation, then we can merge that back to the master branch. And also to note here is that whatever the change you deploy in demo branch does not affect the master branch. So I had added that widget in the demo branch. And if you switch back to the master branch, which is say production version of the application, that will not get be affected. So your business can go through without any issues. So this was one of the major issues, I guess, because without breaking the production version, it was kind of hard for our users to test the flow. So now, we have verified the changes looks good, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and merge this back to master branch. Okay, let's wait for the merge operation to finish. Okay, we have successfully merged the changes. So I'm gonna switch back to master branch. Yeah, as you can see, the new widget which I've added is visible here. We can also go ahead and see the live version. Yeah, here also you can see that the latest changes are reflected. And now that you're sure that things are working fine and all the things are correct, right? What you can do is you can delete this feature branch called demo, because you're done with your work, just like how we handle the normal Git lifecycle development, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and delete this branch. Okay, successfully deleted. And also whenever we delete a branch, right, that branch will not be deleted from the remote repository. So if you go and check here, you can still see the branch here. So and you can always switch back to say in future if you want to test something or revert back or make some changes on this particular branch. You can always go back and in the AppSmith and click on this origin/branch, and then you can switch back to that branch as well. So that's for the branching model. So now I'm gonna switch to a different AppSmith instance, which is a test instance, and I'm gonna import this application in a different instance, and then I'm can give you some demo on how we can use two different instances of AppSmith and work with that. Say instance could be the AppSmith Docker image that can be running in a developer machine, or your QA or internal different environment. So I'm going to go back and copy the SSH URL, and here I'm gonna create a new organization. Sorry. And here in the organization settings, you can see import option. In this, you can use the git import. This is the normal file import feature which was already present. This will be the git import. So the flow is similar to how we connect the application to Git, but here it is just that we expect the repo to have all previously connected applications. So if the repo is empty, then this operation will fail. Okay, so then
Can you zoom this a bit?
sorry.
Yeah.
So the same way how we had generated the key in the connect flow, we did the same thing and we have generated the key. And now we follow the same procedure. I'm gonna go back to the settings, then deploy keys and add this key as well. So you might ask that why do we have to use the different key again? Why can't we use the same one? It is because since this instance is on a totally different machine, it will have its own database and it's a completely different AppSmith instance. And we do not store all these security related information, right, within the Git repo. All of these are encrypted and stored only in the AppSmith database. So for this reason, you have to regenerate a key and follow the same procedure. So I'm gonna go ahead and import this. Okay. So this is a reconnect data source model. So like I mentioned before, we do not store any of the username passwords. So that is the exact reason why we show this model when you import the application. So the idea here is that you can reconnect your data source in the first phase of the application, and also you can connect to a different source. So for example, say your MongoDB was using a production version, assuming that the previous version had production data source. Now you can use a staging database or a local database or a test database. So this way, even if you make some of the hard operations, right, or delete, update, right, this will not get affected with the actual user data. Okay, so now I'm going to connect to a different data source. So in the previous application, I had connected it to a production. So I'm gonna connect it to a different DB called release or similar to that. Yeah. So I'm gonna test this first, and then I will connect it. Okay. I'm gonna save this. Okay, this I will skip for the moment. So when you skip, right, I will show you what happens. You can always go back and reconnect the data source. As you can see here, right, all of these operations have been failed. The reason is that the data source that is being used in this uses a Google Sheet. And since that is not connected, you see the error message. So if you see these error messages when you import, you don't have to get scared. All you have to do is go back to the data source, and then it says data source is not authorized. You can always edit and reconnect it. Okay. Okay, now it could probably because I've used a different Google account, so that's why all of these actions are failing. Okay, now I'm going to go back, and as you can see, all the pages are present. And if you want to check out to any of the branches which are present in remote, you can do so by clicking on this branch. I'm gonna use the demo branch. Okay, so I have checked out the demo branch from the remote. So demo is also present. So that's for the import. Now I'll give you a small demo on how we can use one instance for testing and other instance for the actual production data. So I'm going to use the MongoDB data source here. I'll create a new query for it. Okay. So I'm going to bind this data to a table widget. Okay. So, okay. Now I will push these changes to the remote record. I will say added widget. Okay. Now that this is done, I will go back to the version that I have, and I will check the status if there are any pending changes from the remote repo. And here at the bottom, it says this number indicates that there is your current branch in this instance is one commit behind the remote branch. So I'm going to go ahead and pull these changes, and the widget got added without any hustle and no issues. But as you can see, the data here is different. That's because here this is connected to a test data source, and the data that is coming from here is a different instance of MongoDB that is running, but here it is a different instance. So without having to rerun the query or changing the credentials, all the changes are binded automatically without any issues. Uh, cool. Then one last thing is the new feature which we have introduced recently is the SSH key. So here you can regenerate the SSH key by clicking on this modal. But once you regenerate a key, right, you have to follow the same step of adding the key to the GitHub repository. You don't have to go ahead and reconnect anything. It's just that you have to add the key again to the repository. So the idea here is that there are different compliance rules and security concerns for different organizations. So if you have a rule that you cannot use the same key for more than 6 months or 3 months, or if your key is compromised, then you can always regenerate the key and then add the key to the GitHub repo and continue with all your work. And once you regenerate the key, you don't have to worry about anything else. It is just adding the key to the remote repo. Cool. I will give it back to Vihar.
Thanks, Anagh, for explaining all the different features from version control with Git. It's definitely a lot to take. You have different things. But guys, we also have extensive documentation on our site. I am gonna put on chat, so feel free to go through it in case if you have questions, or else you can take this reference take this as a reference in case there is a problem connecting with Git. Alternatively, you can always reach us on Discord or Intercom, to for us to help you out, while you connect to Git, or whenever you're working on this feature. All right, awesome. With that being said, let's move on with our presentation. So let me put back my. So far we have discussed different things that you can do with version control from Git. But let's actually also try to understand how this feature was built on AppSmith. So as we all knew that AppSmith is open source, we build everything in public. Their feature actually started up with a simple issue that was created 6-7 months back. So first we created a GitHub issue. We scoped out all the things that we are being asked on the community, like how you can take this backups of AppSmith instances, how you can work with teams and then have this pull and sync feature and all. So let's also try to understand what it took for the engineers to actually build this feature from the code perspective. So Abhijeet, do you want to quickly take over?
Yeah, thanks, Vihar. So I'll try to keep this short. So basically in AppSmith, the general practice that we do is when we get the request from the client side, there is a controller. It doesn't have any business logic. It's just the REST API to get the request and to send back the response. Okay. So for each service, we have a separate controller. Like that, the same is present for the Git. So we introduce a Git controller. Then the actual business logic lies in the services classes that we have in AppSmith. Anagh will give you the quick walkthrough of the directory structure, but this is the overall architecture of the Git. So this Git service class will have all the business logic that is embedded in the AppSmith today. Along with that, we need the serialization and deserialization service. So basically, this will be needed to convert the database object into the file structure, okay, that the Git understands. So basically, we have two services placed there. First one is Git service, and another one is serialization and deserialization, which we call as a import export service. So you can consider import export as a child of the Git now. Git has much more scope. But under the hood, we are using the import export right now as well. Okay. Then once you serialize the objects from the DB, we have the AppSmith interfaces. Okay. These AppSmith interfaces talks to the AppSmith Git package. So this AppSmith server package is one package which talks to the AppSmith Git through the AppSmith interfaces. In the interfaces class, we have two different classes. First one is for the Git commands. That is basically Git commit, Git push. All of this logic reside in the Git command IMPL service class. Okay. But server talks to this class through the AppSmith interfaces. Okay. Which is basically the Git command interface. The another one is basically related to the file operations. Like once you serialize the objects from DB, you have to copy those objects to the actual local file system. So that is handled by the file interface class. Okay. And under the hood, we are using the file utility classes from Java, and we have built our own extension for the copying of the files, for deleting the files, all of that stuff, which are needed in the Git. So basically, we have 3-4 components. First one is your database, where all the things that are needed to run your application that is stored. It is a MongoDB database that we use in AppSmith. The another one is AppSmith server, where all the client-side communication handled by the controller and the business logic reside in the Git service. We have the AppSmith interfaces, which will decouple the logic from the AppSmith server and the AppSmith Git packages. Okay. In the AppSmith Git package, you have two different classes again. First one is for your Git commands, like commit push, as I said, and the another one is file utils. Now, once this is done, you have to commit your files to the remote repo as well. Just like Anagh has shared, we are committing the files to the GitHub repo for our demo purpose. So the communication between these two is handled through the SSH. Okay, and to have this consistency and utilize what other folks have already built on, we are using the underhood. We are using the JGit library underhood, which is again an open source library. So yeah, for the Git related implementation, we are using JGit, which is a Java native library for Git commands. Yeah, that's the overall architecture for Git.
Got it. Thanks, Abhijit. So moving on, let's also talk about some of the enhancements and limitations we have around this feature. So Abhijit.
Yeah. The first one, basically, once you start working with Git, the first scary thing that comes to our mind is how to resolve the merge conflict if it occurs. Okay. There are some guidelines like you should not end up in the merge conflict. If you are working on the different branches, work on separate pages. That's the best strategy. You will not enter into the merge conflicts. Whenever you are working on different features, create your own branch. Don't work on your master or main, whichever your production branch that it is. Then but still you can end up in the merge conflicts. Okay, so we are still, and you know that AppSmith uh, is a kind of contextual basis platform. Okay, it's not a regular platform where we do the coding like in Java, in JavaScript, like that. It's a context basis. You have the widgets, you have the bindings, all the context is present in the AppSmith UI. So it's pretty difficult for the newcomer to grok the concept, how to resolve the merge conflicts, which fields are important. So we are working on having the better UX to resolve the merge conflicts. That's the first thing that is on our plate. But we are still collecting the data points for this, in which situation user ends up in these kind of scenarios and how to make it better. Another one is basically the Git import. Like Anagh has already shared, with Git import, we can achieve the environments thing partially. This works great with the databases today. Like if you are working on MongoDB, Postgres, these kind of databases, this works fine. But when it comes to SaaS kind of structure, where like Google Sheet, this does not work well with that. So under the hood, we are introducing a new feature where we are actually actively working on it as well. So we are talking to different users and getting the different use cases from these users. So basically, we are introducing the environments along with the Git now, because that's the first thing that folks have asked us. Now we have Git import in place. How can we implement the environments as well for the databases? So that is being worked on. The third point is kind of limitation for us. Consider you have version 1 on AppSmith where you have one widget, let's say chart version 2. Okay, now you have upgraded to version 2 of the AppSmith, where we have migrated this chart version 1 to version 2. Okay, now this version 2 chart will not be aware of what the other stuff are present for version 1. Okay, so we migrate those. We have the client-side, server-side migration to handle these migrations. But the files are stored in the remote repo, correct? So when you import the version 2 chart widget to version 1 of the AppSmith, version 1 of the AppSmith doesn't know what this version 2 of the chart widget means. Okay, so it's kind of a version conflict scenario. So we don't actually import the versions which are not compatible with AppSmith, and we just throw the error there. We are also thinking of improving this flow, but yeah, this is kind of a limitation for our platform. But it's simple. You can just upgrade your instance and you are good to go. Basically, all the things will start working again. And we ask our users to keep up with the platform latest version to get all the bug fixes and new features that we are introducing day by day. And the last one, which recently folks have started asking us, is basically they have different instances. One is for staging instance and another one is for production instance. They don't want their developers to go to production instance and make their changes. So what they are asking us is, we will be working on the developer or staging instance. We'll be doing the QA and all the stuff, but our production instance should get auto deployment. Basically, you will push your changes to remote, and once these remote changes are present, this your production instance should get all the changes and auto deploy the application, so that we don't have to go to this particular production instance. Auto deployment should work out of the box. So we are also taking care of this in coming days. Yeah.
Thanks, Abhijeet. All right. So guys, feel free to reach us out in case if you have any suggestions or feedback on how we can take this up in future. But yeah, you can expect all these enhancements really soon. All right. With that being said, we have a quick directory walkthrough. This will basically help you understand where exactly you can find the version control with Git code on our repository. And also, in case if you are willing to contribute, our engineers will now walk you through our repository. But before we get into that, let's ask couple of questions. I mean, these are like totally, random questions. Feel free to, answer them, or else you can also skip them. So what was the process like? I know this is like a lot. There are, like multiple features. If at all, even for us to do version controlling with a normal repository, you'll have to create branch, you'll have to, push that other change again, merge this. But now that we have everything in the UI, how was the process like? And, who all people are involved in building this, and how long did it take?
Anagh, do you want to answer this?
Yeah, sure. So, okay, it took us quite a long time. I guess the initial stage was started somewhere around, like, I guess the first discussion was somewhere around August. I remember, I think, it was me, Abhijeet, Nikhil, then Joy, Shrikant, then Hitesh, then Rishabh. I guess, like, I'm really sorry if I missed some name, because it's been quite some time, almost a year. So that was the first meeting. Then we all, like, started doing brainstorming. Like, we like, created a Miro board, like started putting our thoughts, like what we follow uh, as a normal software development life cycle, and like how it should be good, what will be the best thing. So there were too many things, because when it comes to Git, right, like, it's a one big there are a lot of things, because it's a huge part of our SDLC process in general. So we were thinking of, like, what feature we should think, like what all things it should be there. Those kind of thoughts. It went on for some time. Then, like, there were like couple of discussions before even we actually started thinking of engineering and design part. Yeah, it has been like a super fun experience. Yeah, Abhijit, like, you want to add anything here?
Uh, no, actually, you have pretty much covered it. It's just that before starting, we had to close some doors because Git is like open-ended discussion kind of topic, right? You can do whatever you want with the Git. So yeah, basically we have to cut short the scope first. Now we are targeting to address those issues as well. But yeah, the first thing that that came into initial discussion was how to resolve the merge conflict. I remember discussing this, and we come up with the basic structure that we can have a JSON schemas, and then you can actually resolve the merge conflicts through that simple application, or we can have a contextual basis. We can show the depths between the different versions in the AppSmith UI itself. But yeah, these kind of discussions took quite a long. So even before we started developing, or before even we started writing a first line of our code, we have put a lot of thoughts gathering from different users, use cases, and what to include and what not to in version one. But yeah, it's been a fun journey.
All right. So in terms of your design process, today we can see that under the bottom navigation, uh, like did you have any other thoughts on that, or that was like your first and the final draft for having the entire UX setup?
Oh no, man. So basically, when it comes to user flows, we have done quite a lot of explorations. So I think Joy is not here, but he can show that we have gone through a lot of explorations, lot of user flows, how to make it more user friendly. In the first version, the bottom bar was not at all present. Okay, then it came to our mind that we need to keep the experience like other IDEs, like so you should be able to have these buttons, and then from those buttons, it was kind of intuitive after that. So yeah, it's just these small things that need to be ironed out over and over again. So we had done quite a lot of exploration before coming to this end. Yeah.
All right. So definitely building features like these is not like a one-time thing. You must have, had quite of deploy previews, taking feedback from the community. I've been seeing a lot of your messages when you're building this feature. I've been looking at different messages where you post deploy previews on, our Discord channel and like take feedback. How was the process like, and what kind of feedback were you getting from there?
Yeah, to answer this few, first, when we develop something in the UI, okay, or when we are looking for the user flows, we generally ask the community members to go through the user flows and if it is intuitive. So that's the first feedback that we get. If it is intuitive, if the buttons are looking appropriate to you guys, any kind of UI changes that they need. So that's the first thing. That particular flow will sums up what the actual product will look like. Then it comes to engineering problems, if this is possible, and what to make out of this. Like if you check our current version, you can't just commit. You have to commit and push your changes to remote. So that's the decision that we took after we come to knowledge that giving the file system to the users will not make much sense at this point in time. Okay, so it makes sense to keep our remote repo as a source of truth. So if you are on multiple instances, all of your latest changes should go to the remote ASAP. Okay, so these are kind of changes that we had done from the engineering side after the discussion and after the user flows that are discussed with the community members. So it goes like this is limited to the thing that I'm discussing is like on the deploy tab, but it also comes with the merge tab and create branching, delete branching, all that stuff will be included in that.
Got it. So, like since the beginning, we are all saying that this feature had took quite a long time than the others. But meanwhile, we have been shipping at super fast pace, and there were a lot of features coming out like every week. So, were this all features were affecting your work, as in were these all features affecting version control with Git, or is this process like smooth?
Uh, Anagh, do you want to answer or should I go ahead?
Sure, I can take. So, to be honest, so like for first few months, I would say we had our own like test instance. Like we had set up our own test instance, and like we're like continuously deploying that changes like pretty much like two to three times in a day. And that branch was very messy. Like there were like a lot of, I guess, like 600 to 800 commits. So and it was not just me. Like there were changes by Abhijeet, then from front end it was Rishabh. Yeah, it was quite messy, and almost every day there was some sort of merge conflicts that if I had made some changes or someone else had changes, right? So initial days, yeah, there were some sort of hassle, but yeah, we didn't want to merge it back to the code base because Git was literally touching every part of the code base. Like there's not even a single place where Git related code is not present, because Git is for the entire application, right? So whatever you add, it has to go through the Git, because when you do all the operations, everything comes into picture. Like no matter whether you add a JS object or a query, or you drag some widget in the canvas, you change the color, it has to go through. We have to maintain that state. So for that reason, we didn't want to break the flow of the existing things until and unless we were sure that it is like at least in a stable or like a good state where it does not break the other flows. So that was the initial day. So it took us some time there. But once that is done, then it was just like how we do the normal lifecycle development. Like we create a branch, we make the changes, we test it, and we merge it back to.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I
Thanks.
think I also add one more point. The one thing that we did earlier that that made the process pretty simpler is basically we had one integration branch where we are deploying these changes to the instances, the test instances that we had. So basically, we have a release branch where all the production code lies today, okay, on the release instance. And once we are sure, once we had done QA, then we move it to the master branch. We had just the clone of the release as like version control branch, and whatever the changes that we are doing, we are just creating new branches from this and then merging it back to the version control, and all the PRs like those only. Like if you create a feature like create branch, that PR should go to your version control branch from the once you fork it from the release. So we are continuously merging the release changes to this version control branch, and whatever the changes that everyone was working, that were getting merged to this version control branch through the PRs. So everyone was on the board, and basically everyone knew what changes are going into this branch. Because once you have like 500 600 files of change in your this branch, intermediate branch, it is almost impossible to go through the PR and merge back to this release branch, right? So I think that that exercise made quite a lot of sense for us, because this feature is huge. It was touching all the files that we are working on. So yeah.
Understood. But yeah, looking at the number of file changes or number of commits, there's also one more strange question I have. So, how many lines of code do you think is written for this particular feature? Like, rough estimate.
A rough estimate, not sure, man.
Or else you can also,
10.
Same. Yeah, I also think the same.
all
Somewhere.
right, all right. Awesome. So, would you like to also give a shout out to some of the open source packages if involved, while building these applications, or is it completely from scratch?
Yeah, I think I already talked about this. The JGit implementation, which is the native Java implementation for Git, that we have used extensively for running the Git related APIs like Git commit, Git push, all of these commands. Other than that, it is pretty much our own implementation. But that library helped us quite a lot, quite a bit, basically. Yeah.
All right. So shout out to check it then. All right. So Anagh, do you want to quickly walk through us through the repository?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, one more thing to add, Abhijeet. So there was this JGit cookbook as well that also helped us a lot around the tutorial and initial phases around understanding the library. So yeah, big shout out to that as well.
All right. All right.
I'm just gonna share the screen again. So all the backend code are inside app directory than server. So this is where all the backend code lies. And here, as Abhijeet mentioned before, there are three modules that involves. One is server, then other one is AppSmith interface, then AppSmith Git. So I'm going to start with the AppSmith server. So here, okay. So here, all the business logic lies under service class, and we have a specific uh, implementation for Git, which is Git service implementation. So this is where all the logic that Abhijeet had mentioned, right? Like all the business logic, like what happens when we get the serialized object, then we have to do the commit, push, all those operations. But the actual implementation of the commit and push lies in the Git, but it's just that we refer those and we use all the things here. And all the operations that you see on the UI are present here. So I'll go back, server, and then these are different. Then the controller is here. Git for Git again, we have Git controller. So all the APIs exposed can be found here. Like profile for saving that information, like user name, author email, then application metadata, connecting to flow, getting the history, create branch, checkout branch. uh, yeah, so all of the APIs can be found here. Now, I'll go back to the interfaces. So here interface. Sorry. So again, we have a folder called Git, where most of all the related information is present. So one is file interface, which is where all the file related operations are present. And then there is Git executor, where all the Git related commands and basically just the implementation is present in Git. This is just the interface here. Okay, so this is the actual implementation for the Git operations. So this is where we are using the JGit library extensively for all the Git related operations. So this is the JGit library instance, and as you can see, we have all the Git operations like commit. Then there is getting commit history, then push, clone application, creating and checking out a different branch, deleting a branch, then pull. Yeah, so all the flows, Git flows implementation can be found here. Then one more thing was the serialization and deserialization. That again is part of server, but it is part of import export feature. So yeah. C implementation. Okay. So this is mainly serializing and deserializing all the objects from the DB to a JSON file. So you can see operations like export, then this is quite big though, and extract and save it to a file, then import the application into a organization, and all the helper methods. That is, yeah, this all the implementation here are quite big because it involves reading from the file and saving all the objects into the DB, or say reading all the resources from the DB and saving it to a object or a file. Uh, cool. I guess that's it. Is there anything else should I mention here? Abhijeet, you
No,
had
no,
any?
Anagh. Okay, yeah. Abhijeet, do you wanna add anything to this?
No, that's it. Basically, Anagh has covered all the things.
All right, awesome. Thanks a lot, Anagh, for walking us through, the directory structure. Also, would you like to give any suggestions for contributors who are, getting started their journey with AppSmith?
Nothing in specific though. Like 2 points. One is to follow our contribution guidelines, which can be found in the readme.file. And second thing is we use reactive programming paradigm. So user contributor should be able to comfort with that. So it's a functional way of programming. So that might be little, uh, you know, not difficult, tricky for the people who do not come from that background. But yeah, other than that, nothing else. Like if you have any questions, related to contributing to or fixing any issues or feature solution, like you can either raise an issue or reach out to us on our Discord channel. Like one of us will definitely answer that.
All right, awesome. So thanks a lot, folks. Today we have covered literally all things about version control with Git. We have started with the basic problem. We have then discussed all the things that version control with Git supports. Anagh had given a quick demo of all the things that can be done using this feature. So yeah, I think that's all for today. So do reach us out in case if you have any questions, and we'll be keeping an eye on chat, and we'll be answering all your questions. So feel free to post your questions in the chat, or else you can reach us on our Discord, or else you can also reach us on our intercom. We also have a community website. Feel free to post questions there in case if you are having any issues with self-hosting AppSmith, or if you are having any issues with updating your AppSmith instances, or anything related to AppSmith. Feel free to go there and post your questions. And with that being said, we also have one more live demo scheduled for next week. So we are going to collaborate with MariaDB, which is one of our native integrations, and then we will be doing a live demo to build an awesome app on AppSmith using MariaDB. So do stay tuned for that. You can always view them on our YouTube. So this recording also will be available on YouTube, and we'll also be posting this on our Discord. And lastly, I'm gonna also share you the link to the documentation. So all the things that we have discussed here are already well documented on our docs. It's docs.appsmith.com. But feel free to reach out in case if you have any questions regards to documentation as well. With that being said, thank you once again, Abhijeet and Anagh. It was great talking to you. A lot of knowledge to gain from, and we wish we will have one more call, sometime to discuss, some new feature around AppSmith. And yeah, thanks a lot for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Vihar. Yeah.
Thanks, Vihar.
All right, awesome guys. See you. We'll catch up later. Bye.